If my husband had walked out the door 10 seconds later, none of this would have happened. 10 seconds, that's how thin the line was between the life I knew and the one that was about to rip open right in front of me. Because the moment he pulled out of the driveway, an old woman appeared on my porch, holding a canvas bag, holding my name on her lips, holding an envelope thick enough to change a life. And she said the one sentence no married woman ever expects to hear. "Linda, I came with money, and I came to warn you." It started on a frost-brittle morning in New Jersey, early February. Mark was already irritated, which, in our marriage, counted as normal weather. He tossed the electric bill onto the kitchen table so hard my tea in the old Starbucks mug nearly spilled. "You leave lights on like we're living in Manhattan," he snapped, stabbing the paper with 2 fingers. "Do you know what heating costs now?" I said nothing. After 30 years together, I'd learned that silence was the only fireproof blanket. He buttoned his coat, tugged the collar sharply. "I'm heading out. Don't wait up." "Business?" I asked softly. He gave a cold laugh. "I don't need to explain my schedule to you." A familiar ache spread under my ribs. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't blind. I just got tired of trying to be right about a man who loved being wrong. When he finally slammed the door, the house went quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you realize how lonely you really are. I exhaled slowly, reached for my Kindle on the counter, and tried to reread a line from a self-help book about building boundaries. Ironic, really? Then, ding. The doorbell cut through the air like a blade. Mark never rings, he barges. My heart jumped. "What did he forget now?" I muttered. I opened the door and froze. An elderly woman, older than me, maybe late 70s, stood on my porch, coat too thin for the weather. Hair white, wild at the ends, eyes sharp with a strange mix of fear and relief. "Linda?" she whispered. "Linda Harris?" The way she said my name, it felt like she'd carried it in her mouth for years. "Yes," I answered cautiously. She opened her canvas bag with trembling hands and pulled out an envelope. A thick one. Heavy. "I've been looking for you," she said. I blinked. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" A soft, heartbreaking smile touched her lips. "No, but you helped me, and I owe you more than you'll ever know." Before I could ask another question, she pressed the envelope into my hands. "This is for you," she said. "Money I saved, money you're going to need." My breath caught. "Need? Why would I need?" She leaned in, voice trembling. "Because your husband is planning something terrible, and you don't have much time left." Cold slid down my spine. What do you mean?" Before she could answer, the sound of a car engine rolled down the street. Her eyes widened. "Is that him?" I peeked through the curtain. Mark's car, turning onto our block. The woman grabbed my arm. "Please," she whispered. "Let me inside. If he sees me, everything becomes harder. For you and for me." My throat tightened, my heart banged against my ribs. I had seconds to choose. Stay the silent wife, or step into a story I didn't ask for. I stepped aside. "Come in," I whispered. She slipped in just as Mark's tires hit the driveway. And that was the moment everything began to unravel. The old woman stepped inside just as Mark's tires crunched over the driveway's frozen gravel. I shut the door quietly, too quietly, and for a moment, both of us just stood there, breathing like fugitives. She clutched her canvas bag to her chest. "Does he always come back this fast?" "Yes," I whispered, "especially when he forgets to insult something." She huffed a laugh, half fear, half disbelief. "Lord help you." Then the front doorknob jiggled. My heart flipped. Not because he was dangerous, but because Mark had a way of walking in like the house owed him applause. I motioned for her to stay behind the staircase wall. She nodded and tucked herself there, balancing awkwardly like someone hiding from a grandchild during hide-and-seek. The door opened. Cold air followed Mark inside. He stomped snow off his shoes with the enthusiasm of a man punishing the floor. "Unbelievable," he muttered. "She doesn't answer the phone for 10 minutes and the world falls apart." I forced a neutral tone. "Sorry, I was in the kitchen." He shot me a look that stored 30 years of irritation. "Where's my charger?" "The one for my work phone." Ah, the mythical charger. The one that travels the world without him. Humor rose in my throat, but I swallowed it. "In the living room drawer," I said. He grumbled his way across the house, nearly passing the staircase wall where the old woman hid. I held my breath so hard I almost passed out. After rummaging loudly through the drawer, like a raccoon with an attitude, he finally found the charger and left again, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. Only when his car disappeared did the woman exhale. "That man has the energy of a malfunctioning vacuum," she whispered. I nearly choked on my own laugh. We moved to the dining room. Morning light spilled across the table, warming the wood. My MacBook Air sat open, frozen mid-sentence from the digital journal I'd abandoned when she arrived. She glanced around nervously. "I don't have much time. I shouldn't even be here. But I needed to look you in the eyes before it was too late." A chill wrapped around my spine. "Too late for what?" "For you to lose everything." She reached into her bag again and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Her hands shook, not from age, but from urgency. "I followed your husband 3 weeks ago," she said. "Not because I wanted to, but because I recognized him." I frowned. "Recognized? Yes. I've seen men like him before sweeten public lightning in private." Lightning, what a painfully accurate word. She opened the paper. It was a printed document, crisp, official, carrying the seal of a property appraisal company, and my name at the top, in bold. My breath tangled in my lungs. He's evaluating the house," she nodded, "preparing it for sale. He met with a woman, red hair, expensive coat, fake smile. They argued about you, about how to handle you." My knees weakened. I sat before they gave out. "I thought maybe you knew," she added softly. "I hoped you knew." I shook my head. "I didn't. I knew something felt wrong, but I didn't." The words drifted off, lost somewhere between heartbreak and humiliation. She placed a gentle hand on mine. "Listen to me. You are not safe with him making decisions alone. He's moving faster than you think." "Why are you helping me?" I whispered. This time, her expression softened, deeply, painfully. "Because," she said, voice trembling, "you were the woman who helped my daughter 35 years ago, when no one else did. And I promised that if I ever had the chance, I would return the kindness." I stared at her, stunned. My memory flickered. Faces, moments, lost years, but nothing solid. She squeezed my hand. "And now," she continued, "I think I've found you just in time." A sound outside made us both turn, a car door, then footsteps. Mark's footsteps. He was back again, and this time, nothing about his pace sounded normal. The old woman and I stared at each other. The kind of stare only two people in danger recognize. Mark's footsteps crunched up the walkway again, slower this time, heavier, like he was thinking too hard. Thinking is always dangerous when done by the wrong man. She whispered, "He's suspicious." "Of what?" I mouthed. "Of everything." The doorknob turned. I pushed her gently toward the laundry room. "Hide there. Stay quiet." She nodded and slipped away just as the front door creaked open and Mark stepped inside, pulling his coat off like it had personally offended him. He scanned the room, breathing hard. "Linda?" "Yes?" I answered, trying to control the tremble in my voice. His eyes narrowed. "Why didn't you answer your phone?" I blinked. "I didn't hear it." He raised his iPhone, waving the screen at me. "I called 5 times. I forced a steady breath. "I must have been in the laundry room." His gaze flicked toward it sharply. My heart slammed against my ribs. For a moment, I thought he heard her breathe on the other side. Then he rubbed his forehead. "Whatever. I need you to sign something later." An odd chill crawled up my spine. "What kind of something?" "Just paperwork," he snapped. "Don't make it complicated." Whenever Mark said "don't make it complicated," it always meant he was hiding something complicated. He walked to the kitchen, pacing like a man rehearsing a lie. I followed behind at a distance. Age teaches you that some conversations require space, especially with someone who mistakes volume for authority. He opened the refrigerator, grabbed a bottle of water, slammed the door. "Did you clean off the dining table?" he asked suddenly. My stomach dropped. The table, where the old woman's envelope still sat under a magazine. "Yes," I said quickly. Mostly. He gave me that look, the one that makes a person feel like a failing employee. "Linda," he said slowly, "if you've been going through my things," I stiffened. "I haven't." He stepped closer. "I've had concerns," I swallowed. "About what?" "About who you've been talking to." The irony nearly knocked me over. If irony were a chair, I would have sat in it. He set the water bottle down, leaned against the counter, and studied my face with a cold, dissecting stare. "You're acting strange," he said. "You've been forgetful, jumpy, distracted." I clenched my hands behind my back. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" he shot back. "Then explain why the mailman said you were standing outside yesterday looking for someone." I blinked. I was getting fresh air. That's not what he said. He stepped closer again, too close. The air felt tight around my throat. Behind him, the old woman was a silent shadow in the laundry room. Mark tapped the counter rhythmically, an impatient, irritated rhythm. You didn't by chance talk to anyone unusual, did you? The question fell between us like a stone. I forced myself to stay still. No. Why? But instead of answering, he reached for his coat. I'm going out again, he muttered. And don't leave the house. I need you here when I bring the paperwork. What paperwork? I asked again. He shot me the kind of smile a wolf would give a lamb before telling it to relax. You'll see. Just stay put. Then he left. This time, he didn't slam the door. He closed it gently. That scared me more. The moment his car rolled out of the driveway, I hurried to the laundry room and opened the door. The old woman exhaled. He's close. Too close. Close to what? I whispered, to finishing what he started. Her voice shook. Not from age, but from certainty, and that was the first moment I understood. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't imagining anything. I was in danger. Real, deliberate danger. And the person warning me was the only one brave enough to say it out loud. The moment Mark's car disappeared down the street, the house felt like it finally exhaled. The old woman, her name still a mystery, stepped out of the laundry room slowly, as if expecting him to burst back in with an accusation ready in his pocket. She clutched the canvas bag again. We don't have much time. I nodded. Tell me everything. She took a seat at the dining table, directly in the patch of winter light that spilled across the wood. It made her silver hair glow like a dim halo. I sat across from her and gently slid the envelope she gave me into view. She winced. Don't open that yet. Money makes people impulsive. I blinked. Ma'am, I haven't been impulsive since 1984. A tiny smile broke across her face, shaky but real. Then today might be your day. But then her expression hardened. Linda, your husband isn't just planning to sell the house, she said. He's preparing documents that put everything in his name. My chest tightened. That's impossible. The house is joint-owned. He found a loophole, she whispered. A legal one, and he's already started the paperwork. My heart began to race in ways doctors warn people my age about. He wants you dependent, she continued. He wants signatures you don't understand, and when he gets them, he'll decide where you live, what you own, and whether you ever leave a facility again. The word facility made something deep inside me flinch. You're certain? I asked. She hesitated, then reached into her bag again and pulled out a second document, folded, crinkled, but unbearably official. I opened it with trembling fingers. It was a long-term care placement request. My name was typed clearly, my birth year, the facility Mark preferred listed at the top, and the signature line, blank. Waiting. Hungry. My breath shook. She whispered, I saw him hand one of these to the woman at that restaurant 3 days ago. She told him he'd need you to sign voluntarily, he said. She swallowed. I leaned forward. What did he say? He said he'd make sure you were persuaded. A coldness spread through me, settling into my bones like February air. But just as panic tightened my throat, she reached out and gripped my hand with surprising strength. Linda, you're not powerless. Not anymore. What do you mean? There are protections for women your age. Laws most husbands don't bother to learn because they assume we'll never fight back. Her tone sharpened. But I know those laws, and I know the people who enforce them. A sliver of hope pricked through my fear. Before I could speak, she looked around the room suddenly. Does he keep a home office? She asked. Yes, upstairs. Is the door locked? Sometimes. Is it locked today? I froze. In part 3, Mark had stormed through the living room, grabbed his charger, then left again without checking. No, I whispered. I don't think it is. She stood, slow but determined. Then this is the moment, before he returns. I stared at her. You want me to go through his things? She gave me a look older women have perfected, half judgment, half encouragement. You deserve to know the truth in your own home. I swallowed hard. It feels wrong. What he's doing feels worse. That landed in my chest like a stone dropping into deep water. I rose, walked toward the staircase, legs shaking. She followed behind me like a fragile shadow with a powerful purpose. Halfway up, I paused and whispered, Why are you risking so much for me? She met my eyes. Because 35 years ago, she said softly, you saved my daughter when no one else cared. And now, it's my turn. My throat tightened. We reached the office door. I turned the knob. It opened. Inside, the sunlight from the window hit the desk where a stack of documents sat waiting. One with my name bold across the top, another bearing a bank's logo, and a third showing a valuation number for our house that made my stomach flip. A soft noise sounded outside. The old woman's eyes widened. "A car," she whispered. "A Toyota. Is that his?" I ran to the window. It wasn't Mark's, but it pulled into our driveway anyway, and whoever stepped out of it was coming straight toward our front door. The Toyota rolled into our driveway as slowly as a thought you're afraid to finish. I felt the old woman stiffen beside me. Even at her age, her instincts were sharp, like someone who'd lived long enough to know that danger doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes it strolls up the front walkway wearing polite shoes. I peeked through the office window. A man stepped out. Mid-40s, tall. A heavy winter coat. He moved with the calm of someone who belonged anywhere he went. "That's not Mark," I whispered. "Worse," the old woman murmured. "That's County. That looks like someone from Adult Protective Services." My stomach twisted. "Why would they be here?" She inhaled slowly. "Because when men like your husband start moving money, the system notices." My heart jammed itself into my throat. Before I could decide what to do, the doorbell rang. A single chime. Not urgent. Not frantic. Just official. We hurried downstairs. I tucked the documents back onto Mark's desk exactly how he left them. God forbid he notice even a millimeter out of place. The old woman positioned herself behind me as I opened the door. The man lifted his badge. "Mrs. Harris?" "Yes." "I'd like to speak with you. It concerns your husband." I swallowed hard. "What about him?" He exhaled like he wasn't sure where to begin. "There's been activity on your property records. Significant activity. We need to make sure you're aware of it." The old woman behind me whispered under her breath, "Told you." The man frowned slightly when he noticed her. "And you are?" She stepped forward. "A concerned party." It was the least informative introduction I'd ever heard, but she said it with such confidence the man accepted it. "May I come in?" he asked. My pulse skidded. If Mark found out county services had been inside the house while he was gone, he would explode. Quietly, of course, the way he always did. Quiet rage is still rage, it just leaves fewer visible bruises. But the alternative was worse, staying ignorant. "Yes," I said softly, "come in." He stepped inside, scanning the living room with the practiced eye of someone trained to look for signs of distress. Unwashed dishes, unpaid bills, clutter, chaos. But my house was immaculate. Fear makes you a better cleaner. He took a seat on the couch. I sat across from him, hands folded tightly enough to leave nail marks on my palms. "Mrs. Harris," he began, "your husband initiated a request for full authority over your shared assets. That's highly unusual unless a partner is incapacitated." "I'm not incapacitated," I said sharply. "Exactly why I'm here." The old woman nodded as if she'd expected this for years. The agent continued, "There's also a pending evaluation on the house. And," he paused, glancing at his notes, "a preliminary inquiry with a long-term care facility." My chest tightened, my throat burned. Every fear Agnes had warned me about now had an official voice to echo it. "Did you authorize any of this, Mrs. Harris?" "No," I whispered. "None of it." He nodded slowly. "That's important. Very important." The old woman leaned forward. "What happens now?" He lowered his voice. "If a spouse attempts to alter housing or medical arrangements without consent, it triggers an investigation. I was sent to confirm her safety." "My safety?" I echoed, stunned. "Mrs. Harris, do you feel unsafe in your home?" The question landed on me like a weight I'd been carrying for years but never named. Did I feel unsafe? Not in the dramatic movie way, not in the throw-you-down way, but in the erase-you-slowly way. The kind that replaces your life with silence. Before I could speak, the old woman squeezed my hand under the table. Her grip was warm, steady, encouraging, proof that not all touch is meant to hurt. My voice cracked. "I don't know." "That's okay," he said gently. "Uncertainty is still information." He closed his folder. "I'll need to return for a follow-up, preferably when your husband is not present." A shadow passed over me. "He'll be back soon." Then I should go. He stood, buttoned his coat, and headed for the door, but before leaving he turned back. "Mrs. Harris, if anything changes, anything at all, call me. You're not alone." When he left, the house felt heavier. The old woman looked at me with eyes full of something I hadn't felt in years. hope wrapped in urgency. "This," she whispered, "is bigger than you realize, and it's moving fast." A car engine roared in the distance. The old woman's breath caught. "Tell me that isn't him." I looked out the window and froze. It was Mark's car. And he wasn't alone inside it. Mark's car rolled into the driveway like a storm cloud finding its home. But what made my breath hitch wasn't the car. It was the passenger. A woman, younger than him. Hair perfectly styled, coat expensive enough to signal trouble, sunglasses still on, even though the winter sun was barely awake. Beside me, the old woman inhaled sharply. "Oh no," she whispered. "That's her." "Her who?" "The one he argued with at the restaurant. The one who said you'd agree eventually." My stomach flipped as Mark parked, stepped out, and opened the passenger door for her. A gesture he hadn't given me since the Reagan administration. They walked up the path together. Mark's steps were stiff, as if he was preparing for confrontation. Hers were confident, comfortable, like she'd walked this path in her mind many times already. I didn't have time to hide. Didn't have time to think. The old woman tugged my sleeve. "I'll go upstairs." Before I could nod, she slipped away silently, shockingly fast for someone her age. The door opened. Mark stepped in first, eyes cold. And then the woman walked in behind him. Her perfume filled the hallway, sharp, floral, unmistakably deliberate, like she wanted me to know she'd arrived. "Linda," Mark said, voice too calm, "we have company." I kept my tone steady. I noticed. The woman removed her sunglasses and smiled, the kind of smile that pretends to be polite while measuring where to bury its blade. "Mrs. Harris," she said warmly, "I'm Claire." Claire. A harmless name for a dangerous woman. Mark continued. "Claire is here to help with some paperwork." My throat tightened. "What kind of paperwork?" Claire stepped forward, pulling a thin folder from her expensive leather bag. "Just a few documents regarding future planning. Nothing stressful." Future planning. Always a bad sign when the future is discussed by people who don't belong in it. "I think we should sit," Mark said, tone stiff. "No," I answered quietly. "Standing is fine." Claire's smile twitched, the first crack. Mark exhaled impatiently. "Linda, please don't be dramatic." The irony almost made me laugh. Claire opened the folder on the dining table. "This is standard. Many couples your age prepare for medical contingencies early. It just needs your signature in a few places." I leaned in. There it was. Long-term care assignment request. Medical proxy transfer property authorization. All disguised under soft, friendly titles. My chest tightened. "This isn't standard," Claire blinked. "I assure you it is." "Then why wasn't I told earlier?" Mark's jaw tightened. "Because you overreact." I stared at him, stunned by the blunt cruelty. "Overreact? To losing my home? My autonomy?" Claire's smile attempted to reappear. "Mrs. Harris, it's all to protect you." "From what?" I whispered. Neither answered. The silence was sharp enough to cut. Finally, Claire folded her hands. "Why don't we take 5 minutes? You can review the pages calmly." She stepped aside and Mark followed her toward the kitchen. The moment they turned their backs, I pulled out my iPhone, opened the camera quietly, and snapped clear photos of each page. My hands shook, not from fear this time, but from something stronger. Readiness. Footsteps echoed behind me. I closed the folder fast. Claire's voice floated toward me, sugary smooth. "Have you thought things over?" I looked up at her, meeting her eyes fully for the first time. "Yes," I said. And for the first time in years, Mark blinked at me like he didn't recognize his own wife. Before Claire could reply, a loud creak sounded upstairs. She froze. Mark frowned. "What was that?" My heart leaped. The old woman. Mark took a step toward the staircase. "Is someone upstairs?" he demanded. I stepped in front of him. "No," I said calmly. "No one is here except us." But his eyes darkened, and he started walking up the stairs anyway. Mark's footsteps hit each stair like a judge's gavel. Sharp, certain, ready to deliver a sentence no one asked for. "Mark, stop," I said, following him up a few steps. "There's nothing up there." He didn't even turn around. "Then you shouldn't mind me checking." My spine went cold. This was a man who didn't search for truth, only ammunition. The old woman was hiding in the guest bedroom closet. I knew because it was the only room where the door didn't squeak. A detail she'd somehow noticed in less than 5 minutes inside my home. A woman with instincts like that had survived things. Real things. Mark reached the landing, scanning the hallway like he expected a burglar to stroll out casually and ask for coffee. "Why are you acting strange?" he asked, turning his head slightly. Because you brought a stranger into my house, I answered. That's not what I meant. No, I said softly, but it's the closest I'll get to a real question from you. For a moment he paused, like the truth had brushed against him, and he didn't appreciate the contact. He opened the first door. Empty. He moved to the second. My breath hitched. The guest bedroom. The old woman was only a few feet behind that door, hiding among winter coats I never wore. If he found her, nothing in this house would remain safe, least of all me. I stepped forward. Mark, please, would you stop treating me like a problem you need to solve? He turned to me, irritation tightening his mouth. Then stop behaving like someone who's hiding something. I'm hiding nothing, I said, but I'm also not signing paperwork that puts my life in your hands. His jaw clenched. Hard. He opened the door. The room looked exactly as I left it. Bed made, curtains half drawn, closet closed and looking, thank God, completely undisturbed. Mark stepped inside. My heart beat so loudly I was sure Claire, still downstairs, could hear it through the vents. He walked toward the closet, reached for the handle. I didn't think. I acted. I let out the most dramatic gasp of my entire life. Oh no, he spun around. What? I feel dizzy. I pressed a hand to the wall like a fading Victorian heroine. Mark frowned. What do you mean dizzy? I mean dizzy, Mark. It's a real medical term. He hesitated. Annoyance battled obligation behind his eyes. And for once, obligation won. He stepped away from the closet. Sit down. I'm fine, I insisted weakly. Just give me a moment. He watched me carefully, too carefully, but he didn't reopen the closet. Stay here, he muttered. I'll get you water. He marched downstairs. The moment he disappeared, the old woman cracked the closet door open a fraction of an inch. Her terrified eyes peeked out. He almost found me, she whispered. He didn't, I said softly. That's what matters. She exhaled shakily. We need to leave this floor before he comes back. I guided her quietly down the hallway, past the bathroom, into my bedroom, locking the door behind us with a soft click. Her hands trembled as she lowered herself onto the edge of my bed. Linda? She said. If he had opened that closet? He didn't, I repeated, and I won't let him come near you again. She nodded, swallowing hard. He's escalating. Men like this always do when they feel control slipping. I knew she was right. I also knew something else. Mark wasn't the only one escalating. I was too, quietly, carefully, deliberately. She watched me pick up my MacBook Air from the bedside table. What are you doing? Starting a record, I said. If County comes back, they'll need evidence. Real evidence. She smiled faintly. You're stronger than you think. I shook my head. No, I'm just tired of being afraid. From downstairs, Mark's voice floated up. Linda, I have the water. The old woman squeezed my hand. This is only the beginning, she whispered. And she was right. Because fear had kept me silent for decades. But something new, something sharper, steadier, older than fear, had woken up inside me. And once awakened, it did not go back to sleep. Linda, where are you? Mark's voice floated up the stairs, too calm to be casual. I looked at the old woman sitting on the edge of my bed. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. She wasn't afraid for herself, only for what her presence meant for me. I whispered, Stay here. Don't make a sound. She nodded, pressing a hand to her chest as if keeping her heartbeat quiet. I stepped into the hallway and closed the bedroom door quietly behind me. My pulse thudded in my ears as I walked down the stairs, each step measured so Mark couldn't hear how much I wanted to turn and run. He stood in the kitchen holding a glass of water, but his face wasn't soft with concern. It was watchful, studying, the way a man watches a lock he wants to pick. You took a while, he said. I was getting my balance back. He handed me the water. Drink? I did. Not because he told me to, but because I wanted my hands to look steady. Claire hovered near the dining table, arms crossed, folder still open like a trap waiting to be reset. Mark glanced toward the stairs. What was that sound earlier? I kept my voice calm. Probably the heater. It knocks sometimes. He held my gaze for a long moment, eyes narrowed, searching for cracks. When he didn't find any, he turned back to Claire. Let's continue. Actually, I interrupted, surprising even myself. I need time. Claire blinked. Time for what? To review the paperwork properly. Mark scoffed. Linda, don't make this more complicated than it needs to be. I forced my shoulders back. It already is complicated, Mark. His jaw tightened. Claire gave a diplomatic smile. The kind professionals use when they think the client is naive. Mrs. Harris, the sooner these documents are signed, the sooner your future is secure. I didn't realize my future was at risk, I said softly. Something flickered in her eyes. Annoyance, maybe? Mark stepped closer, lowering his voice. We're doing what's best for you. I studied his face carefully. Some men lie with their words. Mark lied with his certainty. I'm tired, I said. I want to rest before discussing anything else. Claire opened her mouth to protest, but Mark raised a hand. Fine. We'll come back tomorrow. Tomorrow? So they intended to return. He escorted her to the door with a stiffness that told me he wasn't pleased with how this morning had gone. Through the window, I watched as she climbed into a sleek Mercedes parked behind his car. She didn't wave, she didn't smile. She simply adjusted her sunglasses, shielding her expression as effectively as she'd tried to shield her intentions. Mark lingered outside, speaking to her in hushed, agitated tones. Even from inside, I could tell he was angry, not at Claire, but at me. At my hesitation, at my new unpredictability, at something slipping from his grip. The moment her car pulled away, his shoulders tensed. He took a deep breath before re-entering the house. He looked at me like he wanted to choose between softening or exploding. He chose neither. Instead, he walked right past me and into his office. A surreal quiet filled the house. I moved upstairs quickly. The old woman was still in my room, sitting perfectly still like a porcelain figure that had seen too much. Is he gone? She whispered. For now, I said. But he's coming back tomorrow. She nodded slowly, as if confirming a fear she'd carried here with her. Then we don't have time. My chest tightened. For what? For you to hear everything, she replied, and for us to figure out how to stop him before he succeeds. She reached for her canvas bag, pulled out a wrinkled photograph, and placed it in my hands. A younger version of her stood beside a teenage girl, smiling, hopeful, innocent. Who is she? I asked softly. The old woman took a shaky breath. The girl you saved, she said, and the reason I came before your husband can take anything more from you. Outside, gravel crunched. Mark's steps approached again, slow, calculated. The old woman looked at me. Linda, we have very, very little time left. I tucked the photograph into my sweater just as Mark's steps reached the top of the stairs. Slow, heavy, as if each step carried suspicion instead of weight. The old woman pressed her back against my bedroom wall. She didn't breathe. Or maybe she did, but so quietly that even the air didn't catch her. Linda? Mark called. His voice had shifted into that tone he used when searching for a mistake he hoped I'd made. I stepped into the hallway before he turned the corner. Yes? His brows lowered. Why did you come upstairs again? I thought you were resting. I needed my sweater. It's cold. He scanned my face. A man who thinks he's losing control will search for confession in any flicker of an eyelid. I kept mine steady. What was that noise? He asked. The window, I said. Draft blew it. He walked past me toward the bedroom. My stomach clenched so tight it felt like it was trying to fold into itself. Don't, I said softly. He turned. Don't what? Don't invade every corner I walk into. A flicker, one I'd never seen before, ran across his face. Confusion. Because for the first time in decades, I'd told him no without apologizing for the shape of the word. He exhaled sharply. I came to check on you. Then check. From there. For a moment he stood still. I could almost hear the algebra in his brain trying to add up this new version of me, this version who didn't fold, shrink, or apologize. Finally he said, Fine. Stay upstairs. I'm leaving for a few hours. A lie. I felt it in the way he didn't meet my eyes. He walked downstairs, grabbed his keys, and left the house without another word. His car engine rumbled away. The second I heard the sound fade beyond the street, my knees loosened with relief. He's gone, I whispered. The old woman sagged onto the edge of my bed. Not for long. I pulled out the photograph she'd given me. A girl, maybe 17, standing beside a faded blue bicycle. The old woman's younger self beside her. Everything about the girl radiated hope. She reminds me of someone, I murmured, but I can't place it. You wouldn't, she said gently. You saw her once, one night, when she needed someone, and you helped without asking anything. What happened to her? I asked. The old woman looked down at her hands, the way people do when holding memory that still stings. She lived, she whispered, because you helped. My chest tightened. Why come now? Because your husband is doing to you what a different man tried to do to her. Silence her. control her, make her disappear behind paperwork. I felt the truth in her words. Heavy. Unavoidable. Mark wasn't emotional. Mark was systematic, and systematic men are the ones people should fear. The old woman continued. I watched him meet that woman at the restaurant. I listened. I saw the documents, and I realized he's following the same patterns I've seen before. This time, I had a chance to intervene. She touched my wrist, and I took it. I sat beside her, my hands trembling, not from fear, from clarity. Then we have to act, I said. She nodded. We do, and fast. I grabbed my iPhone and snapped photos of the documents again. Front, back, signatures, seals, dates. The old woman leaned in. We need someone at the county who listens. Do you know anyone? I thought of the agent from earlier, his gentle tone, his careful eyes, his warning. You're not alone. Yes, I said quietly. I think I do. Before we could move, a loud thud sounded from downstairs, the front door slamming, the unmistakable sound of irritation turning into fury. He's back already? The old woman gasped. I peeked out the window. His car wasn't there, but a paper bag sat on the porch, a Starbucks logo stamped on the side. A nervous laugh left my throat. It's just a delivery. The old woman pressed a hand to her chest. Lord, I nearly stopped breathing. I smiled gently. Welcome to living with Mark. The moment of humor passed, replaced by a shared understanding. The danger wasn't gone. It was circling, closer each hour, and the window for us to move was narrowing fast. The old woman and I stared at the Starbucks bag on the porch like it might explode. Ridiculous. Really? Two women in their 60s and 70s eyeing a caramel macchiato like it was a grenade. I swear, she whispered, placing a hand on her chest, your husband has me aging in dog years. I laughed, short, shaky, but real. Humor is strange that way. Sometimes it slips in like a friend through a back door. But the moment passed quickly. We need to focus, she said. And she was right. I opened my MacBook Air, pulled up the photos I'd taken of every document Claire had tried to hide behind friendly wording. Seeing them magnified on the screen made everything feel heavier, more undeniable. The old woman leaned forward. Send these to that agent. Now. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. If Mark finds out, she met my eyes. If Mark succeeds, you'll lose far more than a laptop. My breath caught. She wasn't wrong. I typed the agent's email, attached the photos, added a simple message. I did not authorize these. I need help. Before I could hit send, gravel crunched outside again. I froze. She froze. We looked out the window. A Toyota, not Mark's, pulled up smoothly in front of the house. The engine turned off. The driver stayed inside for a moment, then stepped out. It was the agent from Adult Protective Services. I exhaled shakily. It's him. The old woman grabbed my arm. Good, very good. But something in my chest tightened. As he approached the porch, I saw another car turn onto our street, a car I recognized. Mark's. My pulse hammered. He's early. The old woman's face shifted from relief to dread. You need to separate them, now. Footsteps. One set calm, purposeful. One set angry, building speed. I moved fast. I opened the door just as the agent reached the steps. He looked concerned. Mrs. Harris, I need to follow up on the earlier report. Some additional information came through. Inside, I whispered urgently. Please. He stepped in, and I shut the door just as Mark's car hit the driveway. The agent's brow furrowed. That him? Yes. The old woman appeared from the hallway. Officer, you need to talk to her in a secure room. He cannot hear anything. Mark's footsteps approached like a gathering storm. Linda, he barked from outside. Open the door. The agent moved quickly, guiding me toward the study. The old woman followed behind, but I stopped her. No, you stay here. If he sees you, everything will explode. Her expression softened. Honey, it's already exploding. But she stayed behind anyway. Inside the study, the agent closed the door quietly. Mrs. Harris, he said calmly, I saw the documents you sent. You did the right thing contacting us. I swallowed hard. What happens now? He sat forward. I need you to answer honestly. Has your husband ever pressured you into signing anything, restricted your access to information, manipulated your decisions? I felt my throat tighten. 3 decades poured into a single word. Yes. The agent nodded slowly. Then we opened a formal case. A loud bang hit the front door. Linda, the agent stood. Do not open it. But the pounding grew louder, angrier. Then, silence. I didn't trust silence anymore. It's just noise waiting to grow teeth. Seconds later, the front door swung open so violently the frame shuddered. Mark's voice filled the house. "Who the hell are you, and why are you in my home?" The agent stepped out of the study, badge raised. "Sir, I need you to calm down." Mark's laugh was sharp, wild. "Calm? In my own house, with strangers digging into my life?" "This is an official investigation," the agent said firmly. Mark's face flushed. "Investigation? For what?" The old woman appeared at the end of the hall, and the second Mark saw her, his entire expression changed. Recognition, rage, fear. "You," he growled. "What are you doing here?" She lifted her chin, protecting her. "Something you never did." His fists clenched. The agent stepped between them. "Sir, you need to sit down." Mark smirked bitterly. "Or what?" And that was when I spoke. "Or you'll prove every piece of evidence against you." He turned toward me slowly, and for the first time in our marriage, he wasn't angry. He was afraid. Not of losing me, but of losing control. The house felt different after the investigation ended. Not louder, not emptier, just honest. A place finally allowed to breathe after holding its breath for too many years. Mark was removed that afternoon. No shouting, no dramatic struggle. Just the heavy silence of a man who finally understood there were consequences in this world, even for people who spent decades pretending there weren't. When the officers closed the door behind him, I stood in the foyer alone, and for the first time in decades my heart didn't brace for impact. The old woman, Agnes, sat on the couch, her hands folded neatly, eyes soft with something between exhaustion and quiet triumph. "You're safe now," she whispered. I nodded. "I think I am." We shared a long, still moment, the kind only older women can share, the kind made of survival and recognition. Women who had lived enough life to understand the weight of silence and the miracle of having it finally lifted. She stayed with me for tea. 2 cups of chamomile, one for worry, one for peace. Before leaving, she placed the old photograph into my hands again. "She got her life back," Agnes said gently, "and now you will too." I held her hand. "Thank you for coming." She smiled. "Thank you for being someone worth fighting for." She left the house slowly, like a shadow returning to safety. When the door closed, I looked around the living room. Same furniture, same walls, but everything felt new, like the soul of the house had been scrubbed clean. Later that evening, I sat on the porch with a blanket around my shoulders, letting the crisp wind brush against my face. A small Kindle rested on my lap, open to a book about rebuilding life in your later years. The words felt gentler now, less like advice and more like possibility. A soft crunch of footsteps made me look up. Ryan stood at the edge of the walkway, hands in pockets, expression uncertain, like a boy, not a man, unsure if he was allowed in. "Is it okay if I stop by?" he asked quietly. I felt warmth rise in my chest. "Yes, it's okay." He walked up the steps and sat beside me, leaving just enough space for comfort, but not enough for loneliness. "You doing all right?" he asked. I nodded. "Better than all right." He looked relieved, not because he needed me to say it, but because he wanted it to be true. We sat together in the fading light, watching the sky shift from gold to lavender. He didn't ask about Mark. I didn't offer details. There are things you don't need to say when someone already understands. After a while, he said softly, "Most people think life gets smaller when you get older." I looked at him. "Do you think so?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "I think it just gets quieter so we can finally hear ourselves." The words settled over me like soft snow. For the first time in a long time, I felt the shape of my own life, my own choices, my own future, opening like a door that had been stuck for years. I turned to him gently. "I'm ready," I said. "For what?" he asked. "For whatever comes next." He smiled, quiet, warm, patient. The porch light flickered on, the sky deepened into dusk, and a new chapter began. Not with noise, not with fear, but with breath. Steady, free, and finally mine.